Okay. Happy Friday, everyone. We are here with PwC, not the PricewaterhouseCoopers house, but Programmable Withdrawal Credential. Right. So, Vincent, Derek, what are we going to talk about? A router? Restaking router?
So I think this is an interesting topic of conversation. It's spoken about a lot. Withdrawal credential
Do you
based
wanna do you wanna do
restaking.
you wanna share the slide first
Yeah. Let's
just
do it.
first
Let's do it.
yeah. So let's talk about primarily what is the restaking router, where it came from, because we were talking to, I don't know, hundreds of people from all kind of facets. Restaking protocols, restaking staking protocols, services, L1 blockchains, L2s, capital providers who want to get exposure, like the DeFi protocols who want to figure it out how to get this kind of the new primitive of how to reutilize the staked ETH value, economic bandwidth for other kind of stuff, right? How can we build on top of this? And there are hard questions that we were like, we as you all know, that we are also behind the restaking cloud. And we get this kind of question. There are multiple ways of restaking can be implemented. One is a withdrawal route. One is a state replication route, is the restaking cloud. But then there are markets can be formed around it. So one is a route and there's a markets. And, could be node operations, just simply reinforce that for node operations, could be used for more strategy-based staking for restaking. So that's what we see, this kind of a new restake staking tokens, where they put the restaked earnings at the first tier, beyond the staked earnings of the inflation rewards. So we see this kind of abstraction going on, but then it brings a lot of what do you call what we ask the question, like how can we take control of our restaked earnings? That's what we earned, and say that, can we revoke someone who is actually said that I will do restaking for you, but then the optimal utilization is not there. But to say, like, can I revoke that approval? Something that you do, right? You give an approval, you revoke an approval in standard and crypto. That's a smart contract stands for. But how many times you can give an approval? I mean, I'm stopping. What you guys think? Why are we doing what we're doing? It's not something that we came up because this is a P1 product. It's a base infrastructure product. It's a neutral stack. It's not something that's commercial. So why are we doing this? We are
Well, I
commercial
think I think what's what's super interesting here is it kind of follows a lot of the other products that we've been building and put together, where it's just increasing optionality for the users. And even though optionality sometimes can confuse people, they just want to set path. This doing so at a base layer like this allows people to create the exact path that they want and really optimize their assets for whatever it is that they're looking to do,
Whilst retaining full ownership of their assets. This is the key tenet. Proof of neutrality is all about offering credibly neutral infrastructure, and the credible neutrality comes from visibility, on-chain record of and a chain of custody of what exactly is taking place with your assets, and whether that be crypto asset in a smart contract or whether it be an asset on the Ethereum consensus layer. Users are hitting the wall because like you said, sometimes optionality can be confusing, but not having the optionality to like back out is also, it causes some issues. But what we want to say is that everybody is like saying, okay, well, there's all kinds of protocols that are being sprung up on top of a validator balance on the Ethereum consensus layer, but you normally have to make a choice right from the start which protocol to go into, and there's many protocols out there. you kind of say, okay, well, I'm going to go for this protocol and it's going to fix my withdrawal credentials. If I want to change that, I can exit, and then I have to exit the validator queue on the Ethereum consensus layer, and then I have to come back, as with a new life, and we'll get into those technical details in a sec as to why that is. That's an Ethereum consensus layer rule. Here, this is about retaining full control over your assets, but also getting the, allowing you to have exposure to the protocols and the applications that matter to you, but whilst holding them to account, through the on-chain metrics that are present.
So in a nice way to put it, that like the PON stacks are always an antidote for any kind of centralizing vectors, right? So it's always there. You want to take control back, and this is the way that you can build on free, open. It's a very neutral stack. Putting back control back to the user with a rage quit, always 24/7, 365 days. But the optionality is great. You can just you can grow that to a scale, but it's always the underlying, the base layer, the base engine. It's always neutral.
Yeah, I think this is a good point, actually. It's a nice way to put it. Antidote for centralizing, vector forces. Imagine there's a protocol that you've approved that has made your Ethereum stake liquid. If they are exceeding 33% of the Ethereum, network, you can just remove your approval. And this is what we want to talk about today.
Exactly. That's great. Well, that's amazing. Yeah. All right.
So shall we get stuck in and just talk about this in people are probably thinking, what the heck are they on about? We need to get more into some details, I think.
Let's jump in.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the idea here is that users have the ability to control so users have a facility in which they can extend the incoming ETH into withdrawal credentials and redirect it to other places. So that might be a restaking protocol. It might be a DeFi protocol. It might be a bridge. It could be more than that. So here with the numbers we'll get into that in a bit. It's actually there's an initial proposal, but further research and development is actually taking place here. But every validator has a 32 ETH effective balance, right? And that can change in the future. And this is why it's an active area of research. There's proposals for 2048 ETH effective balance.
So just to interrupt that. Yeah. So it's an effective balance on a consensus layer. If you don't know what is an effective balance, that's basically the maximum amount of stake weight for a given BLS key as a validator in an Ethereum consensus scheme, right? Consensus application. You can have the BLS key balance of 3,000 or 4,000, but at the moment, the consensus will only accept up to 32 as an effective voting power. So that's a utility rate. That's the stake weight that it takes. But there's a proposal for 2048. If it comes through, then it comes through. But that's why we keep that effective balance is the one that is here, but can change. Is that correct? When people doesn't know what is an effective balance or what the heck is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people just talk about balances in general, and most of the time they refer to the active balance of that validator. Yeah, but in terms of your voting, the basis on which rewards are issued to the validators on the effective balance, because otherwise you would have compounding effects, really. And what this allows is the ability to extend approvals to the ETH inbound. So we have we'll go into it, we have a number of ways that ETH can come inbound to a BLS key, and there are and that will be either from the consensus layer or from user actions, and that approval can be given to other protocols that can have a lien on any kind of problems that are taking place, any kind of actions that the user takes. So we have some endless possibilities on DeFi primitives that can be built on top of this, and we'll get into that in a bit. But this is all built on top of the PON stack, which is completely neutral, and it allows validators to get a universal credit rating with reconciliation guarantees that will get. These are these things will break them down as we get through it, but they're very, very powerful primitives for all kinds of new applications. So to just go through withdrawal credentials and the anatomy of the withdrawal credentials, there are two types of withdrawal credentials for a validator on the Ethereum consensus layer. The initial withdrawal credentials that validators would set up when the Beacon chain was first launched, it was PLS-based withdrawal credentials. Since then, a new type of withdrawal credential was added, 0x01, which is now the most common withdrawal credential for a variety of reasons. You can't actually withdraw money to a BLS key if you want to exit the Ethereum chain. You have to go. Even if you have BLS withdrawal credentials, you have to convert them into smart contract or an EOA withdrawal credential in order to get your ETH out of the chain.
The withdrawal credential is a 001 on a mainnet Ethereum. So, because you mentioned smart contract and EOA, you can create an EOA 001 address anywhere. But you can get it because EOA is the EOA. But if you have a smart contract, it's a different chain. What's going to happen?
Oh yeah, so the credentials so Ethereum is the merging of two chains. You got the consensus layer and the execution layer, and and consensus layer is using BLS credentials, whereas the execution layer doesn't understand any of the BLS credentials.
Yeah, it's limited to a chain ID and a 001 address, specific.
Yeah, you can't withdraw to Gorilla. You can't get mainnet.
Yeah, but it could be smart contract, right? So just to be very, very, very much that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, typically, yeah. So it can, 100%. It can be a smart contract address. The specification of Ethereum will pay out unconditionally to that address. But smart contracts are really, really interesting as withdrawal credentials, and that's what we'll step into in a bit. But the key thing here is that when a validator is registered, the withdrawal credentials of that validator accompany the registration, and those withdrawal credentials for the entire life cycle of the validator cannot change. And this is where the problem, where people are hitting the wall, is that that withdrawal credential, once it's set, it's very fixed in place, and it's unmovable, which doesn't have a lot of flexibility for actions that the user might want to take. There are lots of restaking and non-restaking applications that could use validator staked ETH, which is very sticky and doesn't move very easily. So the fact that it is fixed, doesn't allow a lot of optionality for users on the consensus layer, even solo stakers. So, a solo staker might want to be a solo staker in the long term, but from time to time they may want to opt in to an application that is launching on the Ethereum execution layer. And this is what the programmable withdrawal credentials will change. So we can get into that, right? So what we're doing here is we're not proposing any kind of new EIP. We're reusing the 0x01 smart contract based withdrawal credentials to offer users programmable withdrawal credentials. By default, users will be in full control. They will have sole and exclusive rights to claim the ETH or any kind of ERC20 tokens that are coming into their programmable withdrawal credentials. But they have the flexibility to approve another protocol that can have a claim on the inbound funds into that withdrawal credentials if the user wants. The user fully in control here. They need to do their due diligence on the protocol that they're approving. But having said that, once they are comfortable with approving a particular protocol, that may give them access to other really cool things. So just a bit more detail on the validator lifecycle. When a user deposits ETH to the Ethereum deposit contract on the execution layer, this is where the registration actually starts. Even though the registration of a validator is recorded on the Ethereum execution layer, consensus layer, the actual starting point is the execution layer, and that is sending funds to the Ethereum deposit contract. Ethereum deposit contract takes at least 1 ETH in deposits, and you can fund your validator through like 32 tranches of 1 ETH if you wanted to. But the first ETH sent to the deposit contract with a validator, public key, withdrawal credentials, and signed message, that is the withdrawal credentials that will be taken and associated with that BLS key. And that is fixed, for, like I said, for the life cycle of that validator. It needs 32 ETH to get activated, the minimum balance to get activated and become available to participate in the staking application of the Ethereum consensus line. It can stay active as long as it doesn't violate any core protocol rules, or it may get kicked forcibly, or it may voluntarily exit the chain in order to cease validator operations and recover the unstaked ETH, right?
So the reason that we are talking about the state of a validator is important because the BLS key will remain on consensus layer ledger forever. Even if it exits, anyone can send money to that BLS key and it will get swept back.
Yeah, right. So that validator list is an append-only list, which is true. So that's why even though there's only there's 900,000 validators active on the Ethereum consensus layer, but the validator indexes that are being assigned are over 1 million because it's just an append-only list. But that's right in terms of the state being part of the consensus layer. Yeah, if anybody sent money to a BLS key, even if the validator is not active, the active and effective balance of that validator is 0. It will get swept back to the withdrawal credentials on the execution layer, which actually provides some really interesting optionality for the civil attacks. Go on, expand.
I mean, you cannot have the state repeated. Like you have a deposit, you can register once, but you cannot just re-register on the same BLS key. And once you exit, you cannot come back on the same route. You have to re-register with a new BLS key.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And there is an entry and an exit queue, so you cannot. Yeah. And that is to obviously protect the chain from a large actor that has a lot of ETH that tries to set up a lot of validators to enter the chain, attack it, and then leave. But yeah, there's the civil resistance. You cannot as well re-register your credentials. Once it's set, it's set. But any money, whether it be from consensus layer or a further deposit to the Ethereum deposit contract beyond the 32 ETH required, that will just go back to the withdrawal credentials. And there's really cool things that you can do on top of that. So what we want to do is show you the programmable withdrawal credentials in action. So you have the Ethereum deposit contracts, referred to here as the EDC. So what you have is the restaking router offers the programmable credentials. Now the restaking router is on top of the proof of neutrality registry. And simply Alice comes along and says, look, I'm going to go and register, or I have registered a BLS key on the consensus layer. I can prove that that was me. And then assigns a representative, an Ethereum account on the execution layer that will act on behalf of the BLS key. And that will come in handy later for the programmability. So once the ETH is sent to the Ethereum deposit contract, locking in the withdrawal credentials, the consensus layer will record that. And if it's assigned to the restaking router, by default, Alice will be in full control of any ETH coming into those withdrawal credentials, and she has a claim facility that brings all of her income from running a validator or more than one validator to Alice. But Alice can extend approvals to other protocols. So those protocols can do a number of interesting things with those approvals. We will get
what are those? Like, if you go back, So wanna take a step back and say that you have this kind of Ethereum deposit contract and consensus layer. This is completely different, right? And Alice has some money will be coming at some point of time, but that is only can come from an active validator state, right? So if you're going to come and interacting with a restaking router, you need to create an account on a restaking router to recognize you, and that account will have all the details. We're going to get into that one, but that's what you say, the create account, and the restaking router will reconcile, okay, you are indeed someone who I can manage. I can give you something to do with the router because you have an active validator in consensus layer, right? That's what you're basically explaining here in the left hand side, right? And Alice is in the middle and say, hey router, I want to create an account. I want you to basically be this kind of the co-processor for me to interact with the restaking protocols, right? So restaking router is a very agnostic mechanism that only deals with the approvals and reconciliation. It doesn't really take care of, it doesn't really have any kind of bias, which restaking protocol that you're going to opt in, what is the risk and preferences of that restaking protocol, and it's their utilities, right? We're going to get into those things, but just to remember, this is a very important point. You may see the restaking protocol as the logos of restaking cloud, but it could be an eigenlayer, it could be someone else, it could be anyone else, right? It could be completely new parties or nobody else. So we're just making it like very easy to understand. The approvals, restaking router, that's it. Any number of restaking router. And now we're going to talk about how many, what are the bandwidth that you can expand with your 32 ETH, what are the what are the opportunities that you have to go with this kind of different protocols. It's all subjective. It's completely outside of this restaking router. That makes sense?
So I have a question, and maybe you guys are answering this in a different way, but it just kind of point blank. So if somebody comes in and they register, they're part of this restaking router, I see that there's multiple layers to this approvals here. Could somebody say approve some for restaking cloud, approve some for another protocol, and can they split up a single validator into multiple approvals on multiple protocols?
There you go. So you have like a multiple approvals, it all map to the validator credential. So you can have 1,000 approvals, one validator credential. You can give 1,000 approvals to 1,000 validator at once, the batch it. Like for example, if you're Lido, if you the withdrawal credential owner is a Lido DAO, right? And now you can the Lido DAO, the withdrawal credential owner gives it all of that approvals goes in, but you can just choose how many validators that you want to approve as a withdrawal. Now we're gonna get into that. As a withdrawal credential owner, could be a smart contract. It can delegate that, who can create this account, who can pre-register with the restaking router, and who can give the approval. So you can actually see the creating account could be done by a node runner, right? This is different. And the approvals are managed by the withdrawal credential manager, because the withdrawal credential is on execution layer 0x01 account that we explained before. So it's something that you can do from the smart contracts, but you can actually delegate who can register it. So pre-registration, registration, approvals, everything is modular. Any number of protocols, you can do it. You can revoke it anytime. So it's everything just getting super automated, super programmable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So it's really people with the validator, it becomes much more of a liquid asset that they can start to use within DeFi rather than just being something sitting there on the consensus layer. It's like opening things up.
We'll see that. Is that just a liquid asset or it's compounding,
right.
base asset.
But the liquid asset is definitely, it's definitely valid. You could build much simpler liquid staking protocols on top of this,
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities.
Revenues, you have other things. You have other things, right? You have a lot of other stuff because it's all tethered to the validator. Yeah. Cool.
Yep. Cool.
Okay. Now we're getting into the skeleton. All right.
Yeah. That's right.
I hope it won't get out of the hands.
Not too much. So inbounds, we've got left side is the inbounds is where in inbounds to the withdrawal credentials, that is like consensus layer rewards. for producing a block, attestations, sync committee rewards, and as we said before, you could have, in theory, you can have a consensus layer active balance 3,000 ETH, but the consensus layer actually only cares about the 32 ETH stake weight. That's why your effective balance is no more than that. And as of Shanghai, any active balance above 32 on a validator BLS key is swept back to the Ethereum execution layer as liquid ETH. So, often the ETH that's being swept back to withdrawal credentials on the execution layer are simply just, like I said, attestation rewards and the day-to-day operations of a validator. So, you'll get 0.0 something ETH being swept back, but additionally, any balance above 32. So if you send ETH to a BLS key on the Ethereum deposit contract, and the validator happens to have already a balance of 32, it will just come back really nicely. It's not a feature that I believe is used very extensively in the wild at the moment, but I think with what we're about to discuss, I think it will become used quite wildly for repaying debts and other things. So you can avoid liquidations. And very interesting dynamics here. Outbound, so the not owner. So we have this concept where whoever's owning the validator is the not owner. So by default, with the programmable withdrawal credentials, the owner of the validator is going to be whether it's a protocol and it's shared to other users or it's a solo staker. This is all 100% compatible with solo stakers. And all of the tooling out there, all of the standard tooling will work. Nothing special needs to be done here. But if there are approvals, some of the outbounds will go via approvals for various reasons.
Can you take a step back? What is the concept of a knot? If you go back to the earlier slide, what is a not owner? Is that the BLS key or something else? Just like
So, not in it's in knots. You have knots being used in nautical settings, climbing settings. You're basically tying something to something else, right? So what you're doing is you're tying an Ethereum execution layer address that acts as a representative. It is called a representative in the proof of neutrality stack. That representative is associated with a validator. It's with a validator, BLS credentials. And associated with that, you may have some other metadata. So you can, for example, assign a fee recipient, which, should receive any additional rewards outside of the base rewards that you're getting from your node. So in your node, you have a suggested fee recipient, but on the execution layer, if your validator has signed into the PON stack with a single sign-on and you're participating in other applications, there is flexibility to set additional fee recipients, but equally, you may be required by using a certain protocol to have a fixed fee recipient. That is all there.
Right,
and
right. So the knot
it's managed.
So the knot is the connection between a validator state on a consensus layer and a replicated state on execution layer. So this is the one that is actually tying it together. Is there any oracle here?
Yeah. Nada. Nope. No oracle of any sort. It's a user asset, and it's and it's Ethereum. They don't need to use an oracle really.
Cool.
Especially with the BLS precompile that's coming. So yeah, no oracle. Yeah. So when you have a life cycle that's coming, life cycle that manages this. So the life cycle status just tracks. So if you want to know whether the programmable withdrawal credentials are configured, you're going to be checking the lifecycle status. So zero lifecycle status means nothing's ever happened with this validator. It's never seen in the registry. You can register it, and that still gives you full control of the validator. 2 is when you're issuing approvals, and 3 is when you have an exit. But the state is there permanently, just like the Ethereum consensus layer. The data is always append only. And that gives you some context, really, in if we slice it up. So your the different elements of or the key concepts here in the programmable withdrawal credentials. You have on one slice you have the approvals, on another slice you have the account creation, and on the other the the credible neutral piece that's powering this is the proof of neutrality registry. So that will take care of all the life cycle. You create an account within the restaking router, and then you can issue approval to the various recipients. And then, like as Derek was asking, this might give you a bit more like visual context. You know, how you can slice it up in any way that you decide or is appropriate for the protocol you're interacting with.
So the PON proposer registry, or we can call validator registry of the replicator validator registry from the consensus layer, which will have the complete state management, right? So that's the neutral stack that has like 0, 1, 2, 3 unbegan, registered, approvals, exit. So even if you exit the same way that we explained before, if you send some BLS key to a consensus layer, even if your validator exit, the BLS key and its state, it's there, right? So that's why you go back and send more money to an exit validator, will just fed back. So the PON registry is like a similar kind of a mechanism that will keep a ledger for what is the status of a given validator at a point of time, so you cannot manipulate it.
Yeah, so you have all this. You have this data that is available to everyone, right? Any protocol.
Yeah.
So any protocol can, and this is something I want to drive. Like, is like the approvals, the active approvals, and the total amount is accessible for anyone in any protocol, right?
Yeah. And also, you can create BLS key like out of thin air. It's just because you have a BLS key doesn't mean that you have a validator. Just because you have just because a BLS key associated with a validator doesn't mean that you have an active validator, right? So it's really figuring out, do you really have ETH staked ETH active? That's something that we can use it for external markets to give you more revenue or more earnings. And is that something reusable? Does that make sense, Derek? Like, does that really qualify?
Yeah, it sounds like what's really going on here is, even though a validator can come in and this ETH at stake can be reused, it's not just taking the validator as the asset itself. It's actually tracking these balances. It's keeping track of what that validator state is on the consensus layer, and then making sort of a replication of that, and then bringing it to the execution layer, so that if, say, there's slashing or leakage or whatever it might be in that actual base asset, that will reflect in the execution layer within the different protocols or whatever it might be that's actually using that knot or that validator that it is located in the staked in the consensus layer.
You nailed it, because we are talking about withdrawal credentials, withdrawal based on restaking. Alice comes in and says, hey guys, I have withdrawal credentials. I have 32 ETH in withdrawal credential, because if Alice exit, it just the money's sitting there, and I have BLS key. I can show that I have validator, the same address, my withdrawal credential of 32. Nah, that's not possible here. We don't really care about what the withdrawal credential has today, but what is the withdrawal credential is associated with the validator in the consensus layer. Then it has some value, because it's just earning some money that's actively staked ETH. So withdrawal credential is a mapping mechanism that you can actually come and then reconcile. So withdrawal-based restaking is having its own pros and cons. We're just trying to make that very trackable, very modular, neutral. So basically, it could be used as an interface for giving multiple approvals in different ways.
But anyone can report, in theory, right? Anyone can report if the validators exits, right? So you may have like active approvals, but like you might try to be sneaky and exit the consensus layer, right?
Yeah,
but anyone can see that, right? And report it.
Yeah, but what if the validator is not it's not an active validator, in the sense that not the active eligibility, but it's a leaky validator?
So I'd be curious. You guys are talking about this whole idea of being able to report balances. It'd be good to see like a clear example of what that would be and the advantages for somebody to report, or how they'd report, and like what does that pipeline look like, and what does that even mean? Because reporting, I know, is something where
so you
take a look into
you basically take a state root of a consensus layer of a validator. It's just basically a snapshot of the validator from that chain. So you keep a distance, like you can only take a snapshot of the state root from last 10 blocks or something like that, right? And then you immediately inject that into the smart contracts. So it comes from a chain, it comes from consensus, it's a proof of consensus, nobody can tamper it. It's a known information from the chain. There you go. So now you can calculate, is that validator is active, is leaky, is it something that has an effective balance of 32 or less than 32? If there are only two ways. So we explained that in the second slide. What are the ways that you can reduce the balance? Either leaky or getting slashed, right? You will never you never reduce the balance in a staked ETH. So because you cannot withdraw that in any other way. That makes sense.
It's up to the applications what they want to accept, right? They might say a validator with 28 effective balance is okay, right? The withdrawal credential, it's just like you said, it's just a mapping. It's just taking care of that base, mapping and saying there is a validator on Ethereum. You as a protocol, as a smart contract, you don't have to worry about what's happening on the consensus layer. You can use that ETH at stake for your protocol.
Right. Cool. Makes sense, Derek?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, I mean, what I'm understanding is this whole idea of reporting is it can be advantageous for the validator themselves if they want to report because balance increases. That means they get more usability in these protocols. But it can also go the other way. Say that this validator is leaking or this validator is exited. Somebody might say, "Hey, I don't want this in my protocol anymore." They can report that balance, that validator.
Yeah, let me give you a naive example here, so you know the credit score that we have it. So when you actually go for a credit card or something in our real life, like you have to open a profile for the first credit card, right? And then upon all that you do not open that first one, there's no credit score, so nobody gonna give you any kind of loans, right? Once you have that credit files open, and then there's a lot of criteria. You need to be 18 years old, you need this, you need to have that, blah, blah, blah. You need to have an SSN, all those kind of things, right? And then you actively manage the credit score because that is the basis of how other institutions and the other markets will give you credit lines for you, right? You let it be getting a mortgage, let it be getting a credit card, let it be getting an education loan. Anything, car loan, any kind of things are tethered to that kind of credit score that you're building up, right? So every single time you add more and more spending to that credit score, that's kind of reporting, right? You do in real life. So this is the same thing for the validators. The more the reporting comes in, the more credit score is getting better and better, and the other people can actually give you more and more, opportunity to engage in the market. So, for example, you can get more credit lines. You can offer some lending positions and things like that. But it's in reverse order. But let's get into that. We are going to explain that process because it's a really good question.
Yeah. Great.
Sorry,
yeah, that's interesting.
We're not going to take over that. That all protocols are supported, all validators are supported. You did not mention that one, Vincent.
I mean,
but it's like anything.
It's I mean, I know that all ETH maxes here, but it sounds like this is something that could work with any validator and any ecosystem to start to reuse that stake.
Yeah, for things way beyond Ethereum, but inside of Ethereum as well, but also outside too. This is really scaling the ETH here. So, okay. Let's have a look at what might happen here if an approval is issued, right? So, user will be interacting with a programmable withdrawal credential.
So you're talking about the left-hand side. So you're talking about the left-hand side, right? Yeah.
Can you see my? I'm not sure you can see my mouse.
Yeah,
but,
we can.
Okay, cool. So they from there can issue an approval for however much ETH they're comfortable exposing to certain approvals. Now, what's interesting is that users may accrue, maybe I don't know, not always debt, but let's say they're debt. Let's say you want to I want to mint a USDC coin, right? So but I want to do it with ETH, right? Normally you need to over collateralize, right?
You want to get a USDC and lose it?
Yeah, no, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose my ETH, right? Not just the USDC. It's the, it's the, so, but as an alternative for getting liquidated, if you're approaching a liquidation threshold, for example, you can send money via the Ethereum deposit contract, especially just specify a BLS publicly.
Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can do that. Yeah, the top up of that loan will be through the BLST. Oh my god, that's super easy.
Right. It would just get swept back. And these protocols have have the ability to claim and cover the debt, and you get continue with rate. Well, you retain your 32 ETH, but you're paying your debt, right? So
wait a minute. So you could have 1,000 applications plugged into this router.
Yeah.
And you basically top up in one single route. Oh, that is so cool.
That's really efficient, right?
So is this so just so I can kind of understand, I guess, the mechanism, not to get too technical here, but when somebody says I approve protocol 1, I approve protocol 2, are they doing it based off of percentages of the validator, or is it based off of ETH? What does that look like? Because then when they top up, like when it tops up, is it all coming out of, like, if there's slashing or whatever, it comes out of all of them in proportion, or do you set priority? Like, what does this whole thing look like here?
I told you this will get out of hand. You want to take it?
No, go for it, Matt.
Right. So we're gonna give you more color to that in the next slide. So
keep jumping the gun. Sorry.
Right. So you have like a 32 ETH, and then you can reuse that 32 ETH technically infinite times. So and every protocol has their own risk engine. Like, for example, if you come to Restaking Cloud, K2 takes about 24 ETH for the validator, and then it will just get you this kind of principal protected restaking for other kind of SPV positions or the node delegations, yada yada yada. You go to EigenLayer, then they do this kind of slashable balances on give to other kind of node operations. But what if you give to a bridge lending? So bridge want to have I want to get a bridge, and the liquidity need to be there. I need to borrow like about 2 million ETH from you, and then I borrow 3 million ETH, and it's a withdrawal credential, for example, Lido here. Okay, so we're gonna get into that one in next one, because Lido has like about 30%, or Rocket Pool has like a 20%, or in anyone. So they say like, oh, can you give me X amount of ETH? I'm gonna give you 3% for that one in a year, and they can just like, okay, I'll give you the maximum upper bound is 4 million ETH, and then boom, and you get like 2 million ETH, and you pay for it and liquidity that you do it. You actively utilize that liquidity and do the bridges. Now you can have like the liquidity for the bridges bootstrapped by this kind of a ETH at stake, but you pay a convenience yield. That's how finance, you have this kind of, you put an asset, you get something, the convenience yield is much higher than you're trading that for someone else. So you keep the asset and it just reutilize to create a new asset class, and then you reuse it to the markets, and you pay a fee for that as a credit line. So you borrow a credit line. You can have 1,000 different credit lines. You have an Aave compound kind of things, and so like, you give me X amount of money for lending markets. My lending, how the lending market operates, you all know that we have a collateralized ratio, we have liquidation threshold, blah blah blah. The principal is protected. I'm going to lend it for 8%, but I'm going to give you 5% back. Boom, you have a bootstrap lending market now for $1 billion, ready to go. And you have a roll-up comes in. I want to something. I want to create an Enshrine lending markets or an Enshrine liquidity. Can you borrow that? I'll pay you 2 to 3%. Boom. But the cool thing here is, like, as we said, all the protocols, all the debt, all the approvals are reconcilable at a one unified manner. And we get into that details. So I just don't want to blow up your mind now. The restaking router is literally making everything is like, if you have 1 ETH, it can create 10 ETH a year. No problem. But so it depends. It comes with the risk and reward. So yeah.
True, of course. This is not without any, but it could complement existing protocols. Like, for example, like, I'm just going to pick a random protocol, Rocket Pool, right? The validators could the RE.
You want to go to the next slide? You want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
It has this kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So you can see more visually, right? That's what we're talking about here. Yeah. So that's left hand side.
Rockable could issue on the, you mean, oh yeah, issue or lend ETH to rollups, right? Credit lines to rollups.
Yeah.
And you know, charge the what's the interest on that?
Yeah.
And repay that back to the RE holders.
And they can basically say that, you know, we will revoke that approval. So this is like the approvals were being given by the withdrawal credential manager, right? It's not done by, you know, you can do as if you are the restaker, if you are the staker and the withdrawal credential manager, then you can give the approvals. But this can be delegated to a withdrawal credential manager given approval. But registration, as we said, can be done by node runner and things like that. But this is like a more of a social rule that how much you want to, what is the risk. But as you can see that, you know, some of them are green and amber and a red. The risk profile could be different, what kind of market that you want to use your restaked assets at a given point of time. So where you have active debt and the debt claim. So if you have a debt, you also have revenue, right? So whenever you give someone to reuse it, you're getting something in return. So you have revenue and the revenue will reconcile the debt. So the more it gets you reutilized, the more revenue comes in. Depends on the risk profile of those markets that you're engaged in, your debt can also get accrued. But if you're taking a self loan, then you can actually underwrite your own interest payment from the revenue that you're collecting from other protocols. So basically, any kind of restaking protocol, any kind of liquid staking protocols who is participating in a restaking say that anyone who has been liquid staked with me will get an LSC, but we will have an enshrine, a CDP, borrow facility. You can withdraw dollars out of that.
Well, it makes total sense. Like, why do you want to spend your ETH, or why do you want to spend your Bitcoin? It's better to take a credit line on your own asset, right?
Exactly.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly,
you better keep your ETH at staking.
so if I understand this correctly, say that there's a validator. I just kind of want to run through an example, and they're, you know, perfect example here, there's restaking 1, restaking 2, bridge. They're lending out their ETH at stake to all of these validators. Now, if I'm a protocol, maybe, and I want to see what kind of risk is actually on this, like you could call it a credit score, they can look at all the places that this ETH at stake is currently being used and decide if that's something that they want to bring in or accept as collateral, accept as ETH at stake. Because I could see it, you know, yes, theoretically it could go 1,000, 2,000, infinite amount of protocols it could be reused in. But if they're all slashing it a little bit or saying that, you know, they're not optimally running, that could be wiped out very quickly. And for a protocol to accept that, it might go fast. But that said, there might be 10 or 20, 30 protocols that it could be a part of, and they're all very minimal amounts of impact on that validator. And when they're minimal, it can keep expanding more and more and more and more.
Yeah,
what is the debt obligations, right?
Right.
Yes. But the cool thing here is you can actually get the credit score to a validator level, to a withdrawal credential manager level, that's a protocol level, or to a user level that who actually holds an LP of that, you know, the liquid staking protocol LP of, like, for example, if you have a DETH or something like in Stakehouse, you can basically give a credit score for that user because his DETH is attached to certain validator. You can actually reconcile on chain, and now you have a derived credit score. You know what I'm saying? So
like in an index, in an index of validators, right?
Let me put this in a reverse order, right? You are a wallet. You have an AA bundler. You have this kind of account abstraction. You're offering a savings account enshrined in the wallet as a thing, and say that, oh, this is the savings account with a 3% dollar interest. Boom, right? So nothing to do there. What you do is like, oh, all you can do is like, if you put some money, that will route to a restaking protocol, and that will go and create a LST tokens, and it will automatically restake with the restaking router. And then we are part of this kind of restaking router approvals, right? So now you basically giving that UST from the enshrined CDP position that I said earlier. Now that the money that has actually came in is being staked as a staked ETH, and then being given multiple approvals with a restaking router. Now you have 10 different markets, which is like you can take a very risk averse model, give only for the restaking, cloud or something like that, or money market and things like that, or you can want to take a little bit in a greater risk, like in a kind of withdrawal based slashing, things like that, or you want to give, but you know that how much you need to get an exposure to give that 3% interest offset to the wallet. So now any kind of on ramp, if you want to get 1 billion users onto the blockchain from a rollup, you can just basically do that through an incentivized manner, just putting that asset into ETH and staked and restake it. So the DeFi markets and other restaking markets can give you, a revenue. So basically, like, if you are, you get this kind of a contracts, like in a yearly revenue line, you just sell it. Airtime units, like in a spectrum that we normally see the spectrum, the 5G bandwidth is being sold in pieces, and then it gets resold to whoever wants it. So the government gets it back. So these are standard way of, like, the auctions, but we're not talking about the auctions here, but we're just saying that how this kind of resellers market will directly drive the revenue to the first, the user, who is basically the owner of the ETH, the staked ETH. So the more market that you expose, the more revenue that you get. So if you are someone who's in the middle and say that, hey, I allow you to deposit ETH, but we'll keep that in the dollar value, and then I'll give you 3% on top of it. All I do is, like a smart contract, just interact with the restaking. And the restaking router will really make this ETH, staked ETH, to be available for all kind of other market economics. That makes sense?
Yes, I'm really
Derek,
curious because my mind
is that making sense for you?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think as more and more of this progresses and people start to carve out their own use cases for it, it's again, that's what we're talking about at the beginning, right? It's an open field. It's opening up possibilities for additional protocols, different types of protocols to be built.
Yeah. Anyone can build any kind of restaking markets, and anyone can build any kind of markets based on the restaked ETH, right? Without doing any heavy lifting of, hey, I want to get $1 billion into TVL, and let me offer like about 30 million points or whatever it is. But that's good. The points are good to bring the users. That's a positive sum. But what I'm saying here is, like, the economic cost associated with that. So we want any kid who is coming for an ETH global hackathon, right? Let's put that in a perspective. Could bring a restaking market of their own. They can own it, and they will make these ideas proliferate. And if that idea is actually cool as a product that actually has a use case, what people want to use it, that's an innovation. An idea is not an innovation. Remember this, right? A working product that actually helps people life is an innovation. So anything that moves the needle, let it make it available in a way that is plug and play. Very modular. It just make everything on chain. That's what the restaking router does. That makes sense?
Yeah. And let's not forget, like, in the Western world, we take for granted the banking systems that we have access to, but in a lot of, large portion of the world population don't have access to banks. And some people may have more crypto or, than they do in a bank account, or they may not have a bank account, right? And like you said, if you can build like a restaking application, let's say you can mint a US dollar for, on the basis of a staked ETH, this could change lives of, many people. So, and we have some, really interesting chats with some people like Eldorado and, really cool guys that are just doing good things for the little guy, So it's really refreshing, Yeah.
70% of the world still use the pillow banking. You put the money under the pillow. That's the world.
I don't blame.
Yeah, because even the banks are there, they don't trust it because they don't know what's going to happen, right? So the systems are not really great. So that's where the blockchain is all about. That's what the smart contracts are all about. We want to make this globally, financial inclusion, right? Make it available for everyone. Yeah.
So what about, how do we find this tokenized stake weight then? And, like, how does it relate to rewards?
So basically, like, as we explained before, the stake weight is an important atomic unit in a consensus layer. You have a BLS key, you have an active balance, effective balance, blah, blah, blah. But the tokenized stake weight is a very important metric for the per validator versus voting power for that single application called the consensus mechanism. So if you are in a consensus mechanism, and if you are a proposer, if you're a tester, and it depends on your stake weight that you have a much more better probability to become a proposer, right? If you are like 18 ETH as a stake weight, you're gonna less likely to be on that one. So if you get to a single slot finality and things like that, then you will be super committee and all these things that we are discussing. The reason is the stake weight can only goes down if you are not active in the consensus application, right? Validation process. So that actually get a derived behavior from a tokenized stake weight. Rather than you looking on all the balances, you basically arrange this kind of the one way to look at it is the proof of stake is like in control theory and utilitarian, right? The control theory is like feedback loop that you basically try to control who is the agents, what is doing, and then you reward them associated with the work they have performed. That's why you get some sort of like small teeny tiny amount of ETH for attestation. And also like a comparative in a comparative like a better ETH than a proposer. I'm not talking about the proposer, the ETH that you get paid on the MEV, but there's a proposer rewards on the consensus layer, proposing a new slot in a consensus layer block, right? So it's always a little bit more than what's in attestation rewards, right? So now you have this kind of tokenized stake weight is actually get a constrained environment. So if you want to restake it, if you want to get a unit account, take the tokenized stake weight. You're tokenizing the stake weight of an active staked ETH validator and make a ledger and then make it available for other parties to use it as they want to. And the user always give an approval. They know what it is being used for. You send money to the consensus, so you know what is being used for. The single application is used for staking. If you're restaking, you know what it's being used for. How much approval that you want to give? You want to give 16 in a tokenized stake weight for lending market. That's great. You want to give 32 or 24 worth of the restaking cloud or EigenLayer or any kind of approvals. That's fine. It's up to you how many approvals that you want to take it, how much you want to do it. But at a given point of time, each approvals will have this kind of a tokenized weight per validator that you have. If you have like many validators, then it will derive that aggregated balance as the user balance tokenized stake weight, right? So if your user has like 1,000 validator, that's your tokenized stake weight. If you have one validator, if you have then a half a validator, you have like a portion of validator, basically because you have some LP position through LSD network or something like that, you have a portion of that validator, right? Maybe Derek knows about what we're talking because it's kind of a unit accounting that's a stake house offer. But not everyone has that. But anyway, even if you're a stake pool, you have this kind of a portion of LP, even if a validator has it. So you can always redistribute this money that you're earning to the user who actually put and this is one of the biggest questions that we get over and over. How do we redistribute this? Oh, let's sprinkle it all over the place. No. You can actually reconcile it. Just everything will just goes automatically because the tokenized stake weight.
I think what helps is the hooks, right? Is when you give an approval, right?
I want to call restaking router actions. You want to call hooks?
Yeah,
hooks are great.
Okay, restaking router action. Yeah, sure. So this is the basis that like you issue an approval to a protocol either via some kind of protocol interaction or just a simple extension, and the protocol will receive a notification and say, hey, approval has been received. And the same as like with the revoke. So when the approval is revoked, simple checks. Are there any debts? Nope. Cool. It's your asset. Feel free to leave anytime.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. I'm holding the safe. It's still with me. I love this safe. They have this kind of shadow on it, right? Can we have a shadow staker?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Delegate approvals. You can delegate approvals. You can allow someone else to do that approvals, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important in some protocols, really, where the validators are funded by a number of liquidity providers. So,
right. Cool.
Yeah. So, this is more of like a summary of what we've discussed, user being in control. Like this is just an example approval amount for like restaking cloud, but the approvals we discussed can be a lot more than that. And revoking is there, claiming ETH. So you might be wondering, well, if I approve, if I am participating in a restaking protocol, maybe the underlying principles at stake, but maybe the sweeps and the attestation rewards are not claimable by me. So that is there, of course, and you can claim the inbound assets to that as long as it's no debts on the approvals, right? So all kinds of new primitives are there.
I'd love to see how this bridges and money markets works. So is it possible that we can just show this kind of a value flow somewhere in the draw.io or something like that? Is it possible?
Yeah. Where should we start?
I have some Rocket Pool ETH, and I want to give give to someone who actually want to do the bridging, and I want to get like some nice fee for that. Or I have some DETH from LSD markets. I want to get some ETH for that too. I have some KETH, so I get like constant rewards. I have a basket of liquid staking tokens. How do I get it? I'm going degen now.
Right. I'll say LST degen, right?
Right. But
okay.
It could be like
where are we going?
Symbol validator too, right?
Yeah, so we have LST, so we have so we have a validator, right?
So just to set the scene, this is only about like we're just talking about a particular use case for Rocket Pool or DETH or KETH or something like that. But it could be just a validator, right? It's in the validator balance too.
So what use case are you guys building out here? Like what problem are we solving with this use case?
This is just like we're playing around.
Yeah, okay, we're just playing around. We're just playing around. How do you bootstrap a bridge liquidity for $1 billion out of the box, and without paying anyone, right? So the bridge normally has to pay for the liquidity here and there, and then just get it. So if you want to ETH liquidity, and how do I bootstrap my bridge between multiple rollups? I'm a solver. I just need some bridge liquidity so I can do trades here and there, and maybe whatever it is. But I will pay you, man. You just give me liquidity that can be backed by ETH.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Intent, right? Intent is always like, you need money. What the solver can do without money? Nothing. Oh, you can, but at the moment they cannot.
So we have, let's say we're in the confines, users in the confines of some let's say it's Ethereum or some other L1. And then there's some L2 that the user wants to go to. So, some kind of like DeFi protocol L2, right? L2s all have liquidity problems, don't they? They all need in order to interact with any protocol at a base, you need some kind of a gas token to interact with smart contract. Then you need tokens to do things within the actual DeFi ecosystem on the L2 or the L1 or whatever it is, right? So this is what you're trying to say is so user may have so they may have a validator that is configured with programmable withdrawal credentials. They may mint, they may have their their RETH and all that sort of thing, but they can also lend as a credit line to a bridge. They can lend they can offer a lending facility on that ETH, right? So you so you can approve bridge lending. Right, is this making sense? Approved bridge lending facility. So this is the user that is interacting with okay, maybe this is so the validator is connected to programmable withdrawal credentials, right? So the user will, the degen will approve the bridge lending facility. Bridge, will receive this approval. And they can, they have right? They can extend a credit line here. Then a credit line. Every time those tokens, so that'll mint some coins, right? On this L2 side, and every time somebody interacts with the token faucet, a usage fee is paid back to the user.
That's a convenience yield.
I mean, this wouldn't take very long to build, would it?
Nah, just get the bridge and plug it in and say ask for some lending approval. All you need to get an approval, go to the DAO and say like, can you give an approval? And it's like, yeah, how much you will give? 3%. That's it. And I'm gonna do now. Only going to be used for a certain purpose, and you only give approval for the protocol, looking at the protocol, and the protocol is only for bridging, for the bridging. If you lose money on that bridging, then that's a risk, right? So it comes with the risk of like, if you lose that kind of money, then it needs to be bridged back. The bridge can go underwater, but then they cannot be. You're not really underwriting the bridge. You're basically making the bridge liquidity here. It really depends on what you want to approve. If you want to approve the bridge operation, that's a restaked operations SVP level of approval. You don't want to do that here. You're basically giving a liquidity lending. So it's a very specific lending here. Just to be clear.
Well, because normally like a bridge would have like some honeypot here, right? And normally, attackers are going after this honeypot, right? But this is a credit line, which is something different. This is what the banks do day to day.
Yeah, but then the liquidity is being backed up by our ETH facility, but that doesn't mean that the bridge operations are backed up. That requires that a SVP level protection from K2 or something. So these are two different things, right? You're creating liquidity out of ETH. So what you're seeing here is like a totally different protocol, Derek. This is like you're drawing credit line from a restaked ETH and creating like a new kind of markets immediately to bootstrap the old kind of a DeFi operations, rather than paying 10,000 people. So it's a very capital inefficient manner. How do you operate a bridge? How do you operate anything? You have to pay a lot of people. So here it is like you have readily available ETH that you can borrow, and you can create a liquidity and you operate it. And people who are bridging, they will give you the token. You're basically liquidity provider, like the bridge, and you offer that. And then here you have a service cost and you pay back service cost from here, but you have an ETH backed token that is a liquidity that can reconcile between the chains. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It makes it.
In a volume, you make a lot of money. It doesn't really make money like for 10 ETH or 20 ETH, but it's just like, this is like you bootstrap $1 billion, bootstrap like $100 million. The bridges don't really need to do. Any kids can do a hackathon and then just put the contracts. The contracts is great. Boom, you give an approval, and that's the only thing that can be used for. It cannot be used for anything else, and you can revoke the approval. As a withdrawal credential manager, you can revoke the approval. That's a very important factor. Restaking router will allow the revoke the approval. So the bridge, the liquidity token is worth nothing, so they cannot do anything.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Uniswap can be if you have a Uniswap pool, that people has to give their approvals, right, to do the trading. Otherwise, it cannot be traded.
But they can get the tokens back anytime. It's the same thing. Yeah. Very interesting.
You want to start a bridge? You can't. We have a lot of other things to do.
So the interesting thing is
now you see the existing LSD protocols or existing validators has immediately opened n number of marketplaces with the restaking router. They don't really have to change their withdrawal credential. They don't really have to go and do some other things. Anyone who is also part of a restaking protocol, who has given restaking, a first preferred withdrawal rights or whatever you want to call it, that has been, it doesn't really matter. You can actually participate. Any validator, any ETH stakeholders can participate in any of this kind of a new primitives that is emerging, or multiple restaking protocols. at the same time if you are a restaking. If you are part of the restaking router. So that's what Vincent was showing. Can we go back to the first slide, Vincent? Like, create an account, create a credit score here. No, that's the one. Yes. Yeah, that's the one. You register the credentials. You will see that. And then once you're in the restaking router, you have n number of approvals, n number of protocols, as much as risk that you want to take it, right? So it's really like up to the user, and always the user has the control. You can rage quit, you can revoke it, and if you go to the claim part, the slide that was showing the next one. So the next one, the number, yeah. Is that clear now, Derek? Like, the active debts and the debt claim and user claim. So even if you have some sort of a debt outstanding, you also have revenue, so you can actually pay out from that.
Yeah, no, yeah, it makes sense. It kind of creates this equilibrium there that makes it it can kind of manage
reuse. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It can just keep going, really.
Yeah, either the bond markets operates like that. You just put $1 in, and it creates this kind of market of that, and that $1 in will create $6 worth of value, because the equity markets will go up. When stock markets crash, people actually go and buy the bond markets crash. It's just like, bond market doesn't really crash. Like, gosh, they don't crash it. So like, if the interest rate is lower, you actually go to the stock markets higher. But the stock market's actually created from the lendings, created from this kind of a base money supply, and that's how the equities actually form. You borrow some money from the bank, and then you create you have this operation, you create a company, and that has an equity, and that will get listed, blah, blah, blah. It has this kind of value accrual mechanism. But all the thing is the nervous system of any kind of economy is the credit lines. And the credit lines need a safe asset. And if you can create an asset as a safe asset class, you can actually use this for multiple layers, and you can create this kind of a veneer of this economic layer wrapping all the other networks. Now, restaking router will also enable to give approvals for any other networks, no problem. Not only in Ethereum, any rollups or anything like that, because it's a state replication technology, right?
And we can do this we can program these credentials from your node, right?
NE+. I'm gonna stay back.
Yeah,
this is not stopping anywhere.
No. So concerns about security may come to mind, but users are able to actually interact with the restaking routes of the programmable withdrawal credentials simply via their node. So it all stays within the confine of that. You don't expose any keys to like user interface. It's just a configuration. It's just an additional piece of software that's installed on the node, like another consensus client or an MEV boost. Similar to that. The code is all open source, and users can slice up their withdrawal credentials as they wish in the approvals. They can expose a server to do it remotely. It's up to you what your security appetite is and how you want to air gap it, etc. And it understands how to interact with the Ethereum execution layer, so you can do all kinds of smart contract interactions with it. And protocols can build their own modules. Bridges can build modules for MEV+, so you can extend those credit lines out and create all these new kinds of markets from a single validator. Really interesting.
So just in very simple terms, I'm curious what the process would be for a validator to do this. It seems like it'd be quick, it'd be easy, but if somebody wanted to, I know that the protocols will develop to accept this sort of thing, but from the validator side, if I'm a solo staker and I want to get involved with these protocols, what are my steps?
You need to be registered in the proof of neutrality, validator registry. So the MEV Plus, like at the base layer, already takes care of that. It's just a simple case of paying for the gas to register on the smart contract. So you connect the MEV Plus to your builder API. There are no keys ever exposed to the MEV Plus software. The validator keys.
if I have an MU Plus module in as an NPC or in kind of a signer mechanism for RPC or anything like that, can I get revenue directly? Can I do that, like, just to give an approval calling the restaking router from my, secure enclave? Like, if there's a module, anyone can actually create a module in MU Plus and add it for restaking router approval, right?
Yeah, just think of it like an app store for your validator. You just download the module that you need.
We have like four apps running on top of it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And and counting, and people build their own in the community. It's they're very extensible.
And they're more it is already like available for DVTs and things like that. They're integrating a couple of DVDs already integrated. Like you can actually use it out of the box. You have more tutorials actually going to come in. And so that's something that's there. But the MU Plus is a standalone system. Again, it's part of the proof of neutrality stack. So we anyone can build a module and add it.
Yeah, MIT. So fill your boots.
Yeah. Right. So where are we going with this? When will be available?
Many places.
Right.
We need to let's get some feedback from people. Let's it's actually the proof of neutrality stack is already there. So the programmable withdrawal credentials are a simple module on top of that.
So anyone can actually use this to build new and a new era of loyalty scheme for social media if they want to, and then it's the operations that the data will not go down if they go down, right? So the kind of time they will not go off that the loyalty scheme gets restaked. Or I'm particularly excited to build new kind of markets, for example. Borrow facilities out of that, lending, bridging liquidities out of this. Like pre-confirmations can be much more faster. Any kind of intense infrastructure could be like extremely capital efficient. So always don't really have to pay for the LPs. Now they can just simply ask this kind of ETH-based liquidity, and then they will pay. They know. So it's kind of put this kind of P&L, the cost structure, right? What is your cost to operate the business? That's more important. So you have more predictability to increase your revenue as a business. So if you're a protocol, and you can build the P2P markets, you can build all kind of things. What you have is like you have if you think about token markets about 2018, 20 billion, just remove this kind of coins, ETH and Bitcoin, and this kind of centralized issued coins like USDC, USDT. We need more blue chip products, blue chip tokens to come in, blue chip markets to come in. We need to have more composable financial markets than only the economic at scale. We cannot just have this kind of fragmentation of liquidity because you have to pay someone. It's the grieving cost is very high. So rather we can reuse the ETH staked and then pay back a revenue, and then you have the credit lines and it can available for all the rollups. And this will get Arbitrum rollups and OP-Stack rollups and zkSync rollups and all these kind of things. You can create unique markets. You can also build new kind of applications like prover markets, zk verifiable compute. If you wanna restake some sort of an operations with that, give those the specialized restaking protocol. But hey, think about this one. If you want to use a restake security, you don't really have to worry about, oh, I have to go to that protocol and I have to go and bribe all the parties inside and do that. No, you want to have restake security, go to the restake router, the market will give you that. You want to have more coordinated fashion, if you want to have like K2, you can go there. If you want to have Ligand layer guys, you can go there, no problem. But this will create a very open and fair market for any kind of restake utilities. You name it, whatever you want to build it, you can build it. If you want to get a restake security, that's where you go. Restake router. You're a validator. You want to give approvals for each and every restake markets. You have absolute freedom to do whatever you want and to make any kind of earnings without any upper bound. Period. No one can stop you. No one can grieve you. No one can take your money from your withdrawal credentials just because you give it to them one approval. You can revoke it anytime. You can control it any amount that you want to give. You are in control as a user for your money. It's your money. No one can take it away. That's crypto. That's the fundamental principle that we are in the crypto. Otherwise, just go and deposit to Bank of America or somewhere else. Sit back.
Yeah.
All right. Are we going to talk about this? We have something coming up in Denver, right? So maybe we give more feedback and Restaking House.
Yeah, I think, we're looking at putting a small event together in Denver, Restaking House, and it'd be great to hear people's feedback on this and get some people working on it and testing and playing around in the space.
Cool. All right, Restaking Router, open and free world for restaked markets. Thank you guys.
Great.
Thanks for PON.
I like it.
Thanks.
Cheers.
All right, cool. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.